I think that part of what we've done is because we've actually begun to do this, and the two parties, particularly the Democratic Party, seems most anxious, nervous about what we're doing because we're challenging the political status quo.
And the fact of the matter is the game wants to keep the status quo. They want to keep the power. Maybe by even challenging the status quo between now and Super Tuesday, we can have an impact on the two parties. And we're challenging the status quo. 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 And we're challenging the status quo.
There's a new political party in Arizona. Secretary of State Adrian Fontes writing in a tweet that no labels will be recognized as a party in federal, state, and legislative races in Arizona, starting with the 2024 primary.
A centrist group called No Labels is quietly mobilizing a major bid to launch a bipartisan unity ticket in 2024 as an alternative for voters, as former President Trump and President Biden each move closer to launching their own re-election bids.
Call for unity, and they're in the business of bringing people together. I'm thrilled that we have a couple of people from No Labels on the show today. In particular, its founder, Nancy Jacobson, who is based in Washington, D.C. Nancy, welcome. Congratulations on being the founder and CEO of No Labels. I'm sure we get this question all the time, Nancy, but it's the one that Pete and John also addressed. When it comes to analyzing the state of American democracy, its general health, which I talked about in the introduction, do you think things are worse on the right than they are on the left?
It's interesting. I do think it's both sides, right? I think that when you think of the right, you think of Trump, who really controls the Republican primary voters. He bullies members of his party to, we saw it recently in this past Congress, the infrastructure vote, or, if you voted to impeach, he looks to take out. I mean, we've never seen a former sitting president act in that manner. The left of the Democratic Party, I do believe the left, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren controls the Democratic Party. I don't think there's any center left there either, and they play for keeps just as well.
We can't just keep flipping elected officials around every 2 years hoping it'll get better when we really need a culture change.
They look at Washington, they see the hyper-partisanship, they see loud microphones on the left, loud microphones on the right, and nobody really rewarding good behavior in the middle.
Moderate third-party options. Some Democrats are expressing concern they could take votes away from Biden. Top Democratic strategists reportedly met with the group last week. No Labels takes an anti-Trump approach, claiming they will back out entirely if the candidate is not Trump in the GOP primary. So what do you make of this No Labels? And Mick, I know you've got some sort of involvement with them. So how real is this? Talk to us about it.
I was involved with them in the House when I was in 2011. I know a lot of these folks. I spoke to one of their gatherings down in Miami about the budget and so forth. I think the time is uniquely right for a potential third party. I think it's one of those things that happens once every 50 or once every 100 years. And when you look at the numbers of 2/3 of Americans don't want Trump or Biden, that's real. These folks are for real and No Labels. They're working on getting a candidate on the ballot. They don't know who that candidate is yet, and that's important, and ballot access is important.
Joe Manchin?
That's the question. Who's going to come out and super excited about Joe Manchin?
Yeah. it would siphon votes from Democrats and Republicans, which I think is a common misconception that it would hurt one party or the other. But this will never happen.
The idea behind this is to simply pave the road for that possibility if we get to next May, and it's a break glass in case of emergency. And the emergency would be not to help Trump, but to be in a situation where Trump was up 15 points over Biden, who may have had a health crisis or some, God forbid that happens, but that's what happens when you're 80 years old. So we have to discuss the possibilities. So it's simply laying the tracks, because you can't decide next June if there's an emergency to do something about it then, because you have to get on the ballot in enough states to get a third party going. And this is not a protest vote. They have said specifically that this is not designed to try and help Trump. They are dedicated to opposing a Trump presidency, bottom line, and that it's not a protest vote unless it's a legitimate ticket. And listen, if you get to a point where it's a true emergency, Democrats are going to say, like they did with Carter in '80, that looked to Kennedy, they'll look to somebody to take over, because they don't. If it's clear that Trump's going to win, then I want a plan B, and that's all this is a plan B.
No Labels, our old friends at No Labels, who are a pro-Republican super PAC, funded by Republican billionaires, funded by the same people who are funding Ron DeSantis, by the way.
Correct.
And I want to just make that assertion again. Nancy Jacobson's organization is funded by the same billionaires. No Labels is funded by the same billionaires funding Ron DeSantis. The same billionaires giving Ron DeSantis hundreds of millions of dollars are giving Nancy Mace millions and millions and millions, or Nancy Jacobson and No Labels millions and millions of dollars. Now, why is that important? Because today No Labels gave the game away. They came out and they said, well, if Trump's not the nominee and it's DeSantis, we'll step back and stop campaigning. We won't campaign against Ron DeSantis. This is an amazing, amazing, amazing tell. This is like their fifth excuse for why they're doing all this. And it tells you what you really need to know about No Labels. The billionaire class of Republicans absolutely, passionately, desperately wants Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump. They'll get all the tax cuts and none of the criminality, okay? But the fact that No Labels sells itself to the press and to Washington, D.C. people and to donors all across the country, small donors especially, we're just centrists, we're moderates. We want people to get along and work together.
Yeah,
we
bipartisan.
We want to have bipartisan civility once again. Oh, you're going to support the noted centrist Ron DeSantis, the most anti-LGBT governor in the United States of America, a governor who has spent months pissing on Walt Disney Company for imaginary horseshit, while he will not condemn the growing tidal wave of Nazis, white supremacists, Klansmen, etc., who are marching publicly in the state of Florida every day now, who are out in the open every day now. A guy who has been so petty and vindictive and turned the power of government so many times against his political opponents that it astounds the mind. A guy who has forced members of his administration to raise money for the campaign. Get that? Listen to that again. Government officials are being forced to raise money for Ron DeSantis's campaign for president. The corruption, the venality, the extremism, that's No Labels in a nutshell. They don't care. They are a Republican super PAC. Nancy Jacobson is a Republican activist and operative. They're going to try to elect Donald Trump, and if that fails, they'll elect Ron DeSantis. They don't care. They peeled back the layers today. You saw behind the curtain, and it is ugly.
% of American voters consider themselves independent, so not Republican or Democrat. And the group No Labels is looking to capitalize on Americans' dissatisfaction and is working to present a unity ticket. One Democrat, one Republican, to challenge the status quo. Nancy Jacobson is the group's CEO and co-founder. She says her group is facing pushback from the right and the left, certainly from the left for sure. Nancy, I think there's some confusion about what No Labels is and what you want to do. So why don't I just give you the floor for a moment to explain that?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much, Dana. We've been around for 13 years. We formed and created and built the Problem Solvers Caucus in the Congress, the only bipartisan go-to group. We matched it with Senate allies. So we've been around for a long time. But what we're doing now is to provide a choice for Americans. If we come to 2024 and this country doesn't want the choices that are served up, we're getting the ballot in all 50 states to offer Americans a choice if they want it. We call it an insurance policy. We don't have to do it. If the American public doesn't want it, we stand down. One ticket, one time.
What is your measurement then if the American people want it?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, we're going to wait until April because that'll be after March 6th, Super Tuesday, and after Florida. It'll be very clear who the choices are, and we'll know it, just like we see all the polls right now. Right now, nobody wants the matchup of Trump-Biden. It's very clear. It's all over the place. I mean, one of the most recent polls was 70%.